Hello guys, so from next month I'm going to start putting out some backend projects. Okay, so I'm going to start with PHP from next month. Okay, I have a lot of projects in mind that I'm going to start building and then sharing them with you. But before that, I want to have some SaaS and then Bootstrap projects before we even start anything with the backend. Okay, because what I'm thinking is when I get into the backend, I may not be explaining the front end as much, or we may not be spending a lot of time on the front end, right? So I want to have some SaaS and then some Bootstrap projects before we even get into the backend. So for this project, we are going to build and deploy a responsive hospital website using HTML, SASS, and JavaScript. Although I'm going to explain every step along the way, okay? Everything we do in this project, I'm going to explain. It will be better for you to know something about SASS, okay? Just the basics before you start this project. But if you don't know anything, don't worry. I'm going to explain everything along the way. So this can even be a good project for or a good start for you to know about SASS. So with SASS, we can modularize our code using partials, okay? So instead of having everything, that's the CSS in one giant file, we can modularize it, okay? We can split it into different files. That is using partials. So you are going to learn how to use partials in this project. We have mixins in SASS as well. Mixins are almost like functions. So you are going to learn how to use mixins as well. SASS also has some built-in functions that we are going to explore and use. We have nesting in SASS as well. So just like in HTML, where you can nest, let's say, an li in a UL, SASS also you can nest elements. Okay, you can select elements by nesting them. So we are going to learn how to nest elements in SASS. Okay, so we don't have to use too many classes. We can just nest elements and then they'll be selected. So this and many more things that you're going to learn in this project. So let's get started. Now, as I said earlier, we will be deploying our website. And that means after building the website, we will be uploading the website files to a server, okay, and make it available for everyone around the world. So for that, we are going to use Hostinger. Now, Hostinger is by far the best hosting provider right now. And that is because they are very reliable and affordable. As you can see here, for $3.50 per month, you're going to have your website hosted, right? So here they have different options. They have different plans that you can select. I prefer this plan, okay? I prefer this package as I'm going to be able to host 100 websites. They give me 100 gigabytes of SSD storage. I can have approximately 25,000 monthly visitors on my website. They give me a free email. Okay, so you can get maybe hello@yourwebsite.com, and they are going to give you a free SSL as well. Okay, and SSL is the lock that you usually have on your website, okay, making your website secure. They give you a free domain name as well, which usually costs with other hosting providers. So hosting actually gives you a lot of free stuff. So that is what I am going to use, and I have my affiliate link in the description. So if you appreciate this tutorial, you can use that, and I may get a commission when you make a purchase, okay? And you're also going to get a discount. So here I'm going to select the package that I want, and Hostinger is very affordable, so I'm going to go with this. That is the 48 months. I'm going to enter my email, and I'm going to use PayPal. Okay, so let me go straight ahead and submit or make my payment. Let's proceed and claim our domain. Okay, so they are giving us a free domain. Let's proceed to claim it. So your domain name is going to be your website's name. All right, so the domain name for this, I'm going to say, okay, so this is going to be my domain name. Let me check to see if it is available. and it is available. Okay, so I'm going to claim it, and we are going to create our website ourselves. So we are going to skip this step. All right, so now that we are done purchasing our hosting and claiming our domain name, let's proceed to building the website. Here in my project folder, I have all the assets, that is the images that we are going to use in this project. All right, and that is the only folder I have here now. So I'm just going to right click and then open this project in my text editor, which is VS Code. In the main directory here, I'm going to create my index HTML file. Okay, and for the SASS, we are going to use the SCSS version of SASS. So here I'm going to create my style.scss. Okay, we're going to use the SCSS version of SASS. Let me actually make this bigger. And we are going to write some JavaScript, as I said earlier. So main.js. Okay, so these are the main files in our root directory. Now the easiest way to compile our SCSS or our SASS is by using an extension. Okay, so we have this extension called Live SASS compiler right here. Okay, so Live SASS compiler. So this is the extension I am using to compile my SASS. Okay, so we can actually go to settings. So right here, my compiled CSS is going to be compressed and it is going to be minified. Okay, so it's going to have this .min.css extension. Okay, and it is going to be in this folder. Okay, so this is automatically going to create a new folder called CSS and then put the minified CSS inside of it. Okay, so this is what I have in my settings.json. Okay, so let me just close this. And I'm going to use two more extensions. Okay, as I said, we are going to be nesting SASS. Okay, so we should have brackets per colorizer. Okay, and this is going to help us know, it's going to colorize our brackets. Okay, just so we know what elements we are actually working with. All right, and another extension that I'm going to use is called preview on web server. Preview on web server. Yes, this right here. Okay, and this is just going to help me preview my website in my default browser. Okay, so I don't have to reload every single time. Now the last extension that I'm going to use, which actually comes pre-installed in VS Code, is called Emmet. Okay, so if you are using a different text editor, you should install that as well, and that is all we need. Okay, so those are the extensions that we need for this project. All right, so let me hold back to my HTML, and with Emmet I'm going to do exclamation tab, and I'm going to get this boilerplate, and the title for this is going to be responsive hospital website using HTML, SASS, and JavaScript. So if you have the Live SASS compiler extension installed, you may have to restart your VS Code or the text editor you are using. You are going to get this down here. Okay, so you are going to get this watch SASS down here. So I'm going to click on that, and as you can see, we have the CSS folder here. Okay, and we have our style.main.css. That is the minified version of the SASS that we are going to write in here. Okay, so we are going to write the SASS in here in this .scss file, and it is going to be compiled into this minified CSS file. That is what we are going to do. So we are actually going to link this minified CSS. So let's link that. So I'm going to do link, and I'm going to go into the CSS and link the minified CSS. Let me actually leave a comment here. Now, as I said earlier, we are going to split our SASS into different files. Okay, we are going to modularize our SASS. Okay, so right here, I'm going to create right here in the main directory, I'm going to create a folder called partials. Okay, and inside of it we are going to have our different files for the SASS. Okay, so the first file that we are going to have is our config. Okay, so to create a partial we have to start with an underscore and then the name of the file. So this is going to be config.scss. Right, so this partial is not going to be compiled, okay, but it is going to be imported into the main file, which is in turn going to be compiled into this modified css. Okay, so we are just going to split our code, that is the SASS, into different partials. So as we go along we are going to create different partials for our SASS. Now in this config file I'm going to have my browser reset. Okay, so the margins and the patterns that the browser comes with by default, I'm going to remove those. So right here, let me actually go into my style, which is this main file, and I'm going to import the config. Okay, that's the partial I just created. So I'm going to do at import, going to go into my partials and then get the config file. So that is how you import a partial. Now let's go back into the config file and grab everything. Okay, so the margin for every element on the page is going to be 0, the padding is going to be 0, the border is going to be 0, outline for every element is going to be 0. Some elements have some outlines. For instance, inputs usually have outlines. Okay, and buttons as well. So we are going to remove that with outline of 0. List style of none. So some LIs have some bullets. We are going to remove that. And then text decoration for our anchor tags is going to be none as well. Okay, let's also set our box sizing to be border box. Now in SASS we can use variables. Okay, and using variables in SASS is quite is better as compared to that of CSS, and I'm going to explain that in a minute. But we could create a different partial, a different file for our variables. That is if this project was big enough. But here we are just going to put our variables here in the config partial or the config file. So here we are going to have our first variable, and this is going to be our primary color, and the hex code for this is going to be 480 CA8. So that is how you declare a variable in SASS. Okay, so variables in SASS begins with a $sign. Okay, and then you assign the value. Now I'm going to have some more variables, so I'm just going to grab them and then paste them in here. Let me paste that. So these are the variables that we are going to use. So we have color primary or primary color, we have our primary color variant, we have secondary color, white color, we have light color, and all that. Okay, so these are the variables for our colors. And down here we have two more variables. We have container LG, okay, which is going to be the width of our container on a large screen. And then we have container MD, which is going to be the width of our container on medium screens, which is going to be applied for the smaller screens as well. But for now, let's just leave this. We'll come back to all this in a second. Now to use the variables, let me just do something here and then say the background for the body. Let me set that to the primary color. Okay, now I'm going to go back into my HTML and then right click and preview on web server. Okay, so I'm going to launch on browser, and this is going to be opened in my default browser. This project is going to be opened in my default browser. All right, and this is what we have. Now the body is applying the primary color, okay, that we have here. So the advantage that variables in SAS has over variables in CSS is, as you can see here, the value of the variable is applied directly, okay, to the property, which is good because in CSS the variable is what is applied here, okay. So in here you would see the variable instead of the value, and some browsers do not understand that, okay. So SAS actually helps with cross-browser compatibility. All right, now we are basically done here in the config file, but before we even close this file, I'm just going to get our font, okay. So we are going to use Montserrat font. We are going to use Montserrat for our font. So let me search Montserrat right here. Just going to grab from the 300 font weight, okay. So 300 regular, medium, semi bold, and then the bold, okay. I don't even know if we are going to use the bold, but let's just grab it. So I'm going to import it into my config file. So let me just copy this, come back to my project, and up here I'm going to paste our font in here, okay. So we are basically done with our config file, and I'm not going to close it yet. We may be referring to some of the variables that we have and all that, okay. So let me actually close the JavaScript. We are not going to need that for now. Now let's move on and then create another partial, okay. So inside our partials folder, I'm going to create another partial called general.scss, and this general partial is going to have all the general classes and all the general styles that we are going to need for some elements in the project, okay. So let's actually go back here. I'm going to duplicate this just to make sure we include the general partial that we just created. So back into the general partial, I'm going to have a class of container, okay, and give it a width of the container LG variable that we have in here, okay. So 82%, that's the variable we have here. And remember, in this file, that is the main file, we are importing the config file before the general, okay, before this general partial. All right, and let's set the margin to 0 auto. So some elements are going to have this class, that is the container class, especially for these different sections of the page, okay. So notice how the left side here and then the right side here have some margin, okay. That is because of the container class that we just created. So we are going to set the width for the container class to be 82%, okay, and then it's going to be margin 0 auto, just to put it right in the middle horizontally, okay. So that is why we have our items in the middle, and then we have some space on the left and then the right side. Now let's go back into the project and continue. Now we are going to have some styles for our images. So every image is going to be displayed block, and they are going to have a rate of 100% of its parents, okay. Now every h1, h2, h3, h4, and then h5 is going to have a line height of 1.2. Now let's grab every section. So we are going to have different sections for our web page. So every section should have a margin top of 6 rem. Let me go back to the finished project and show you something real quick. So this right here is a section, okay. So this is our services section, and inside the services section we are going to have two direct children. We are going to have an h2, which is going to be this title that we have here, and then a paragraph, okay. This paragraph, they are going to be direct elements of the section of that section. So almost every section is going to have that same thing, okay. We are going to have the title and then a paragraph, here too we have the same thing, right? So for every section, let's grab the direct h2 inside of it, okay, and text align that to the center. So we are using this symbol, that is this ampersand, to grab this item, okay. Let's actually grab, and notice how we are nesting, okay. Notice how we are nesting our elements inside of this section, okay. So we are grabbing the h2 inside of this section. So here too we are going to grab the p, the paragraph, and text align that to the center as well. It is going to have a width of 40%. Let's actually do 45. Yeah, 45 should be good. And then a margin of 0.6 for the top, auto for the left and right, and then this should be 0.6 rem, auto for the left and right, and then 2.5 rem for the bottom, okay. We have an error. Oh, this should be p. Let me remove this. Great. Now from there we are going to have some classes, okay. So we are going to have a button class or a btn class, which is going to be applied for any elements that we want to be a button. And for this we are actually going to use a Mixin, okay. So in here in our partials folder, let's create a Mixin.scss. Let's make sure we actually import this in our main file. Let me actually call this Mixins, okay. So let me rename this to Mixins. Come on. So let me go back into the Mixins. And Mixins are just like functions, okay. So whenever we want to use this Mixin, we can just call it, okay. We can just include that. So in here we are going to have a Mixin for our button. So we are going to do at Mixin, and then the name of this Mixin is going to be button, and we are going to have our styles, okay. Now we are going to display our button to be inline block. They are going to have a width of fit content. They are going to have a padding of 0.75 rem for the top, and then 1 rem for the left and right. So 0.5 rem for the top and bottom, and then 1 rem for the left and right. Now the border radius is going to be 0.4 rem. Background, for now, you know what, Mixins can take in parameters, okay. So we are going to have some parameters in here, and whenever we want to use the Mixin, that is this Mixin, we can pass in some arguments. So in here we are going to have a text color as the parameter, and we can set a default value, okay. So this is going to be the white variable color, okay. And we are going to have a background parameter as well, so background color, and let's have a default value of secondary color. All right, so here the background, we can use this parameter, okay. So background color, and then the text color is going to be text color. All right, now let's set the cursor to be pointer, and we are going to have some hover effects. So let's set a transition of all 400 milliseconds is good. Now we can now go back into our general and include the Mixin we just created, which is the button, okay. So just to test this, I'm going to go back into my HTML and have a button, and I'm going to give this class the btn class we just created, okay. Now let's check our browser. Do we have an error? Oh, let me check. Let's go back. We should make sure our Mixin comes before the general, okay. So let's save and check, and we have it, okay. So this order is actually very important. let's go back into, now as I said, we are going to have a hover effect, okay, with this Mixin. So let's create the hover effect. So we are going to nest that and then say ampersand hover. You want to change the background, okay. And as I said at the beginning of the video, in SASS we have some built-in functions, okay. So we are going to use the lighten function here, and this is going to lighten every color that we give it, okay. So we can lighten, in this case we are going to lighten the background. So let's get the background parameter and lighten it by, let's say, 8%, okay. So on hover we should, let's see, let me go back and small, let me do 80%. We forgot to prefix this with the underscore, okay. This should be a partial, so we have to prefix it with the, all right. So now we have, now I want this to be, okay, I want a box shadow as well, okay. So a box shadow of 0 on the x-axis, 1 rem for the y-axis, 1.6 rem for the blur, and then an RGBA. So here we can just use the color that we want, okay, for this RGBA. So we are going to use the black color, and the alpha for this is going to be, and that is for our hover effect, okay. That is for our hover effect. Now let's check, and we have this. All right, so let me go back and then remove the button. Now we are basically done with our mixins now, okay. So let's go back and then continue with our general classes or our general styles. And in here we are going to have a btn primary class as well, okay. And for that, let's include the mixin, that is the button mixin we created. For that, the text color is going to be white color. It's going to be our white variable color, and the background is going to be our primary color, okay. So that is going to be the arguments for our primary btn, okay, our btn primary class. All right, so we are basically done with our general styles, okay. And before we proceed to the body of the HTML, I want to have some media queries in here, okay. So we are going to have two media queries. One is going to be for medium devices, and another is going to be for come on, we are going to have another one for smaller devices, okay. So we are going to have two media queries. Now the first one, which is for the medium devices, let's do at media screen, and the max width for this, why can't I tab today, is going to be 1024 pixels, okay. So at this breakpoint, I want to get a container class, and I'm going to change the width to the container md for medium, okay. So at this breakpoint, that is on medium devices, I want to have the width of the container class to be 90%. So that is for our medium devices. That is all for our medium devices. So I'm just going to copy this and paste it down here. Now the breakpoint for our smaller devices or our small devices is going to be 600 pixels. And in here, I'm going to get the section, that is the section tag, and then grab the paragraph, the direct paragraph inside of it, and change the width of that to be the container md, okay. be, let's make it 55% should be good, because it's for 45 up here. Oh yeah, let's actually make this 42, and it's going to be 55 here and 90% down here. Okay, so that is all for our general class. Okay, that is all for our general partial file. Now we can close this up. Actually, let's leave it. Okay, we may be referring to some styles in here, so let's just leave that. And now we can proceed to our body. Okay, we can proceed to creating the actual website. I'll start with our navbar. Okay, so our navbar is going to be inside a nav tag, and that is an HTML5 semantic tag. And then we are going to wrap everything inside of it in a container class. Okay, so that is the general container class that we start up here. Okay, in here, let's go back, and then let's have our logo. Okay, and let me give that a class of nav logo, and that is going to be inside an image. Let me put that inside an image. So some text for our logo, and we are going to have our UL, an added list. Let's actually give this a class of, no, let me make this an ID. Okay, we are going to be nesting all these. We are going to style these elements by nesting inside of our SASS, right? So I'm not going to need the class, but I'm going to give it an ID. Okay, just so we can grab on it in the JavaScript. Okay, so our nav items, that is the ID that I'm going to give our UL, and then each nav item is going to have an anchor tag. Okay, now this first one is going to go to home, so it's just going to bring us to the top of the page, and it's just going to say home. Okay, let me duplicate this 5 times, I think 4 times, and the next one is going to go to services. Okay, so in the services section, we are going to have an ID of services, and by clicking on this, it's going to bring us to that section with the ID of services. Okay, now this one is going to go to specialists, so it's going to say specialists. Now this one is going to go to our testimonials in the testimonials section, and lastly, we are going to have our appointment. Okay, let's say make appointment instead, and that is going to take us to the appointment. So our nav is going to have its own partial. Okay, so let's have nav.scss, and let's make sure we bring that in. So I'm going to duplicate this and get the nav partial. So in here is going to be our styles for the nav. Now remember, it's inside a nav tag, so let's grab that and then give it a width of 100 viewport width. Okay, let's give it a height of 5 rem and a position of fixed. Our navbar is going to be fixed on the web page, so let's give it that. You know what, the font that we imported, okay, the font that we imported in our config is actually not applying. So let's go to our styles here and let's have something in here. Okay, so let's get the body, or we could actually do this in the general, and on top of this I'm going to have the body, and font family is going to be Montserrat, that is the font we imported, and sans serif, okay, as a backup. Montserrat is a sans serif font. So line height is going to be 1.5. Color is going to be dark, that is the dark color, and the background, okay, is going to be RGBA of the primary color variant with some alpha. Now let's set user select to none, okay, so that we can select anything on the page. So now with this font family, we should have our fonts changed, okay, so it's not like it used to be. Now let's go back, grab the HTML and set scroll behavior to be smooth. I want us to be able to scroll smoothly to the various parts of the page, okay. So that is what this small scroll behavior smooth is going to do. We can now go back to the nav and then continue with our styles. All right, now I'm going to set the z index to be 10. Display this as a grid. The reason why I'm displaying this as a grid is because, let me show you. Let me just give this a red background and grab the container class, okay, and I'm going to make this container let's make it this white, let's say. Okay, so we have our red nav and then the container inside of it is white. Okay, let me actually display this container as a flex, just so we can have, let me grab the UO inside of it and display this as a flex as well. I just want this element to be exactly to fit exactly inside of it. Okay, so the reason why I'm displaying this as a grid, that is the nav, the reason why I'm displaying that as a grid is because I want to place items to the center, and that is going to place the direct child, or this container is going to be placed exactly in the middle. Okay, as you can see here, that is why I'm doing display graded and placing item to the center. So now I can remove this background and this as well. All right, now let me actually give our nav some box shadow. So a box shadow, 0 for the x-axis, 1 rem for the y-axis, 1 rem for the blur, and an RGBA of black and then 0.1. All right, so we have that box shadow. Now let's move on to the container. Okay, it's already displayed flex, so here I'm just going to justify content to be space between. Okay, and that puts an even space between the elements. Now these buttons are only going to be needed on medium and then small screens. Okay, so here inside of the container I'm going to grab the buttons, okay, and then display them to be none. Let me leave a comment. So with this display none, we should have only the logo and then the nav items. Okay, now let me actually put this side by side so that we see what we're doing. I'm actually going to align items to the center as well, and that is all. Now I'm going to grab every link, okay, every link inside of this container, that is the anchor tags. I'm going to grab them and then change the color to be white, okay, the white color, and I'm going to comment this out for now. But let's proceed, and then the font weight is going to be 400, and the font size is going to be reduced to 0.9 rem. Okay, so we have that. Now in here, that is the UL. We've already displayed that to be flex, right? So I'm going to give them a gap of 3 rem just so we have some space between the items, and I'm going to align items to the center as well. Okay, so we have that. Now let's go back into the HTML and then give this make appointment a class. Okay, we are going to give it that btn class. So btn, and we should have a button, okay, because we have that styles in here. Okay, we included the Mixin. Where is it? Let me show you the Mixin, the styles for that Mixin, which is this. Okay, so that is the Mixin for our btn class. And let's go back into our nav and let's change the text for the logo, the color for the logo. Okay, let's change the color for the logo. So in here, I'm going to grab the nav logo and then the H3 inside of it. Okay, and I'm going to change the color. Okay, so it's actually not going to be visible for now. Okay, but we are going to change. You know what? Let's have a Mixin for the background of this nav. Okay, let's have a Mixin for that. So let's go to our Mixins partial and create a new Mixin. Okay, so we are going to call this gradient background. Okay, so this is going to be a Mixin for our gradient background. Now we are not going to have any parameters, so the background is going to be linear gradient, and the angle is going to be 135 degrees, and we are going to have our primary color and our primary color variants. Okay, so those are the colors for the linear gradients. Now the color inside of this gradient is going to be white, so we can use this Mixin inside the nav. Okay, so now I have an error. Undefined variable white. Let's go back and see white color. Save. Let's check. And we have our gradients background, right? And now let's uncomment the white color that we had for the anchor tags. Let's save. And we have this. Okay, so now we have a gradient background for the navbar. We are going to use this gradient Mixin for the header as well. Okay, so let's have some styles in here, some more styles. Every h1, h2, h3, h4, and then h5 inside this gradient should have a color of white. All right, and that is all for this Mixin. Now let's go back into the nav And we are basically done with the styles for the desktop version of the navbar. Okay, now we should make this responsive. As you can see here, this is not responsive at all. Okay, so we are going to make this responsive. So let me go back into my generals and then grab this. I'm going to copy, come back here and then paste it. And make sure I close the brackets. All right, so let's have some styles for the medium devices. And just to see the breakpoints for this medium device, let me give the navbar a background of red, just so we can see the breakpoint. Okay, so from here and below, we are going to have these styles. Okay, let me make that smaller. Okay, and then yeah, so this should be good. And let's go straight into the container. Now I'm going to get the buttons. Okay, we need them here, so I'm going to get them, and then I'm going to display them inline block. I'm going to give them a background of transparent. Come on. And they are going to be white. Okay, so color white, save, and we should have those buttons right here. Okay, we have them, but they are too small, so I'm going to increase the font size to 2 rem. Set the cursor to pointer. I want them to look clickable. Okay, now for the start, we are not going to need this close button or this close icon. Okay, so remember we gave that an ID of close nav btn. I'm going to display that to be none. Okay, so let me show you. We gave that an ID of close nav btn. Okay, so I'm going to display that to be none. We don't need that for now, and we can go ahead to style the rest of the elements. Now outside of this button, I'm going to have the UL. I'm going to grab the UL or the unadded list, and this time, or on medium and then small devices, I'm going to position this to be fixed. Okay, this is going to be positioned fixed, and it's going to be 5% from the right side of the screen. Okay, so let me show you something real quick. Inside the config here in the medium, we have the width of the container to be 90%, right? That means we have 10 extra percent left. So we have 5 for the left and then 5 for the right. That is why in here we are setting the right to 5%. Okay, so that it aligns to the edge of the right container. All right, so in here, let me actually give this a top. Let me give this a background for now so that we see what we're doing. This should be 5 rem from the top. Okay, remember we gave, okay, the nav, we give that a height of 5 rem, so we want this to be exactly 5 rem from the top. Okay, so that it sits at the edge of the bottom of the nav. And this time I'm going to change the flex direction. Remember there's already displayed flex, so I'm going to change the flex direction to be column. Now let's align items to the start, and I'm going to leave no gap. Okay, so I'm going to remove all the gaps. Okay, so that's what we have. Now let's target the LIs inside of it. Okay, so the LIs or the list items, we are going to give those a width of 100%. That should be good. And inside the LI we have the links. Okay, let's target that and then give those a color of white. We are going to give them a height of 100%, and we are going to display them block. Okay, give them a padding 1.5 rem for the top and bottom, and then 2 rem for the left and right. border radius is going to be 0. Now let's change the background for the links. Okay, so the background here is going to be, let's actually just make this our primary color variants for now. Okay, so let me remove this red. All right, so for now our background is the primary color variant. Actually, you know what, let's make this like we have here. Okay, we are going to have the primary color variant and then the primary color itself. Okay, to make this, I'm actually not going to use the primary color. Okay, I'm going to use the same primary color variant, but this time I want to darken it. Okay, just so it can look like a gradient. So I'm going to use the darken function and then passing the primary color variant. Okay, and this actually takes into arguments. So the percentage that I want to darken this is going to be 12%. Save, and we have this. Okay, so it now looks like the finished project. All right, now let me get this. Okay, that is the last item here. This has a btn class, so the btn class, and the background is going to be the secondary color. Okay, so secondary color. All right, so we have that. Now I think it is time to make this work. Okay, we should be able to open and close this. Okay, so when we come to the website on medium and then small devices, this shouldn't be showing by default. Okay, it should be hidden, and then by clicking on this we show it. Okay, and then we can click on the times or the close icon as well to close it. So up here I'm going to hide this. Okay, so I'm going to set the display of this to be none for now. All right, so by default it's going to be hidden, and then we are going to go into our JavaScript, okay, to make this work. So let's actually make sure our JavaScript is linked. So down here at the bottom I'm going to link my JavaScript. Okay, so main.js. Now let's go into our JavaScript file. So what I'm going to do is first grab this. Okay, that is a URL. Okay, and remember I gave that an ID of nav items, right? And I'm going to grab these two buttons. Okay, so the open and then the close button. So those are the three things that I'm going to get. So, okay, so here I'm going to get the nav items, document.query selector, and we give that an ID of nav __ items. Okay, so let me duplicate this twice, and I'm going to get the open nav btn. Okay, and we give that an ID of open nav btn. Let me get the close nav btn as well, and we give that an ID of close _ nav btn. Okay, first we want to be able to click this, okay, to show the nav items. Okay, so I'm going to add an event listener on this open nav. So open nav btn, and I'm going to add an event listener. Here is going to be a click event. Okay, and on click we are going to run this arrow function, this anonymous arrow function, and here we want to grab the nav items and show it. Okay, we want to change the style to be flex. Remember by default the styles for this is actually flex. Okay, right here. Okay, so it's flex, so that is what I'm doing here. So I'm going to change the style to flex. So let's try this. I'm going to click and we have it. Okay, now on click of this I want to hide this hamburger, okay, and show the close icon instead, so that we can close this menu. I'm going to get the open nav btn, and the style display here is going to be none. Okay, I'm going to hide it and get the close nav btn, and the style display for this is going to be inline block. So let's save and try this. I click, the hamburger icon is gone and replaced with this close icon. Okay, so now we should be able to close this, but that is not working because we haven't given that functionality. Okay, so let me get the close nav btn. Okay, and I'm going to add an event listener here, and there is also going to be a click event. And actually here I'm going to call a function called close nav. Okay, I'm going to call a function close nav. So let me have that function here, close nav. Come on, this is going to be an arrow function, and in here we are just going to do the opposite of this. So let me just copy and then paste this. So on click of the close, on click of this, I want to hide the nav. Okay, the nav items, I want to hide it. The open nav button, now I want to show it, so it's going to be displayed in line block, and the close icon is going to be displayed none this time. Okay, so let's try that so I can show and then close it. Okay, now notice this is not exactly like the finished project. Notice when we are showing it, we actually have some animation. Okay, so let's go to the CSS and implement that animation. So I'm going to go to back into the CSS, and down here we are going to have that animation. So in here I want to give the LIs an initial opacity of 0. Okay, so let me actually come down and then have a keyframe here. So we are going to set a keyframe, and the name of this keyframe, I'm going to call it flip nav item, and this is going to go from and go to. Okay, so we can actually do from and then to, or you can do 0% and then to 100%. Okay, it's the same thing. So at 0%, I want to transform and rotate. Okay, I'm going to rotate the nav items on the x-axis, and it's going to rotate from 90 degrees. Okay, so that is going to be the start, and then at 100%, I want to bring that to 0 degrees, which is how it actually looks. So let me actually show you this. I'm going to uncomment this and show you something real quick. So let me paste this transform. Okay, and let me show you. On click, you see we have nothing. That is because these are rotated 90 degrees on the x-axis, so they are flat to our face. I don't know if that makes sense. So if I should change this to, let's say, 80% and show this, you see we have it. Okay, we have it, but it is rotated 80% on the x-axis. So 90 is actually flat on the horizontal axis. Okay, I don't know if that makes sense. All right, so here let me actually remove this and bring this back to 0. Okay, so here at 100%, I want to set this back to an opacity of 1. Okay, and let's make sure we link this animation or this keyframe to the items we want to animate. So here I'm going to say animation, and then the name of the animation, which is flip nav item, and this animation should take 300 milliseconds. Okay, it's going to be ease, that is the timing function, and it's going to be forwards. Okay, so these animations are going to remain, or they are going to have the styles of the end state of the animation. Okay, so let's try this. Okay, so we have this. Okay, it's not exactly what we want, but we are getting there. All right, now I want these items to, you can see they are rotating in the middle. Okay, each of them is rotating in the middle, that is on the x-axis. So I actually want them to rotate from the top. Okay, so I'm going to transform origin to the top. All right, so we have a difference there, and let's actually add a perspective to this. Okay, so a perspective is just how close or far we are from these items, okay, or from this animation. So I'm going to go to the parents of the items that we are animating, and then I'm going to add a perspective of 300 pixels. This basically means we are 300 pixels away from this animation. Now, I don't want these to all come in at once. Okay, so I'm going to select the um, I'm going to select each one of them. Okay, so let's do nth child and then grab the second one, and we are going to put a delay on it. Okay, so animation delay, and this is going to take, let's do 200 milliseconds. Oh, okay, so this actually takes 2 seconds before it actually animates. Now I want this just to be 200 milliseconds, and I'm going to duplicate this a few times. So this is going to be for, come on, so this is going to be for the third item, the fourth, and the fifth. Okay, so the third item is going to be 400 milliseconds. This is going to be 600 milliseconds, and then we are going to have 800 milliseconds. All right, now let's try. Okay, so we have exactly what we have here in the finished project. All right, so that is all for our nav. Okay, that is all for our nav. We are going to have some more styles, like the change of the styles on scroll. Okay, we are going to have that styles as well, but for now I think this is enough. We can move on to the next section, which is going to be this header section right here. Okay, so let's move on to that. Now looking at the finished project, you can see we have two main items. Okay, so we are going to have this left contents, or this main contents, and then on the right side we are going to have the image, which is very simple. All right, so in here, let me bring this down. The header section is going to be inside the header tag. Okay, and inside of this we are going to have our container, and we are going to have our header content. Okay, so the header content is going to have an h1, which is just going to say complete health care solutions for everyone. Now let's have a paragraph. Let's do lorem 30 for this. Okay, 30 should be good. Below that we are going to have a button. Okay, so an anchor tag which will go to the appointment section of the page. Okay, let's actually give this a class. Let's give this a class of btn, and the text is going to say make appointment. So that is for the contents. Now a sibling of that is going to be the image on the right side. Okay, so let's give this a class of header image. Okay, now we can grab the image. Let's go into our assets and get the image. This is an SVG. Okay, so we have that. Okay, and this is all we need for the header section. All right, so let's actually create a partial for the header section as well. Header.scss, and let's make sure we are importing that in our main style.scss. Okay, so let's import our header.scss or the header partial. All right, now we can close some of these. Okay, so let me actually close the nav. What else? Let me close the JavaScript as well. All right, so let's head back to the header CSS. Okay, and let's style our header. First, let's see what we have. Okay, so we have some text. Okay, but that's the header content. It's actually under this nav. Okay, but we are going to work on that. So this is where we go from the markup. So let's get back. All right, so let's get our header tag, and we are going to include the background. Okay, the gradients background Mixin that we created. So let's have that. Okay, so we have that background. So from there, let me actually give this a height of 100 viewport height, and I'm going to display this grid. Okay, just so I can place items to the center. Now let me set the overflow to be hidden. Now let's actually get the container class, and we are going to give that a margin top of 3 rem. Let's actually display grid, and the grid template columns here is going to be 46% for the left side and then 46 for the right side. Okay, let's save that, and we have this. All right, let me actually align items to the center. Let me give a gap as well. Okay, so the gap is going to be the remainder of these two. Okay, so 46 we have 8% remainder. Okay, so I'm going to set the gap to 8%. I'm going to justify content to be space between. And now let's target the header content. Okay, let's start this left side. Where is the header content? So let's come down and then grab the header content, and in here let me get the h1 first, and I'm going to set the font size to be 3.5 rem. The line height here is going to be 1.1, and I'm going to set the letter spacing, letter spacing to be -3 pixels. Okay, so this is what we have. Now let me grab the paragraph. We'll close this. I'm going to grab the paragraph. Okay, so the paragraph inside of the header contents, I'm going to grab that and then give it a margin of 1 rem for the top, 0 for the left and right side, and 2 rem for the bottom. Let's give that a color of the lights color and a font size of 1.1 rem. Okay, so let me actually show you the light color that I'm giving to this. Let's go into our config, and the light color is just the white color. Okay, it's just let's actually make this white color. So it's just the white color with some alpha, okay, with some transparency. So that is the light color that we have here. All right, I think this actually looks better than this. Okay, I think this actually looks good. So let's just keep this. All right, now I think that's all for the header. Okay, let's actually have our responsive design here in the header section. Okay, so let's see. So that's about the size of a tablet. And in here, let me grab the header and change the height. Now let me get the container class, and the H1 here is going to have a font size of 2.5 rem. I think that is still big. So actually, you know what? Let me go back and then reduce this text. Okay, let me that is too much, so I'm going to just remove some of these. Now let's see. Not too bad. Let's go back to the header. So let me get the contents. I think it is not working because we are not being specific. So header contents and then the H1. Okay, and we should have that. We should have that style. So now let's set it back to 2.5 rem. Okay, that actually looks good. All right, so on a real device you can see it looks pretty good. So let's just proceed, and that is for the medium devices. Now we are going to have another media query for small devices. So in here, let me shrink this. Okay, let me shrink this and then show you. So let's get the header just so we see the breakpoints. I'm going to set the background to red. Okay, so this on mobile. So on mobile, what do I want to do? Let me get the height and then make that 100 report height. Okay, the padding top of 3 rem, padding top of 3 rem. This should be height, right? And now let me get the container class, and the grid template columns here is going to be 1FR. Okay, so we have that, and I'm actually going to text align everything to the center. Okay, now the gap is too big. I think we give that a gap of 8 rem or something like that. You know what? I didn't do that here. Okay, so let me reduce the gap to 1 rem in here. Okay, and here I'm going to get the header content as well, and the margin for this is going to be 0.8 rem for the top, 0 for the left and right, and then 0.5 rem for the bottom. Okay, the line height here is going to be 1.4 rem, 1.4 for the line height. All right, so that is on mobile. Let's actually see how this is going to look on an actual mobile device. This is what we have. Okay, and I don't know if I should just keep this. That is the, let me reduce this to 2.2. All right, so this is okay. Okay, if you want, you can reduce the font weight for the H. Okay, so you can say font weight and then 300. If you want, you can do that, and I think this actually looks better. Oh, that's the font weight 300. I think that is actually good. So let's just keep this. Okay, just like in a finished project. All right, so that is all for this header section. Okay, so the next section is going to be this services section that we have here. Okay, so we are going to have our h2, our paragraph, and then we are going to have, these are going to be article tags. Okay, and each of them, we have this icon, we have an h4 I think, and then a small tag with this paragraph. Okay, so let's head into the markup heading. For now, let's just style it. Okay, so we are going to have our services partial. Let me include that here. Let me import it. So services, and let's just get into styling this. Okay, so I'm just going to start with this duplicated contents that we have, and then I'll come back to change the actual content. Okay, so I'm going to change the h4 and then the icons. Okay, let's go into our services and then style this. So let's grab our services ID. Okay, remember we gave that an ID of services, and the reason why we gave that an ID is because we want to be able to click this. Okay, and it is going to bring us to that section, as you can see. Okay, so that is why we gave that an ID, but we are also grabbing on it in the SAS or in the CSS. So yeah, let's continue, and then we are going to go into the container directly and display that grid. And the grid templates columns here is going to be repeat 3 times 1fr. Now let me give a gap between them. A gap of 2 rem should be good. All right, now let's grab the actual article tags. Okay, so each article tag should have the gradient background. So here I'm going to include the gradient background. Let's save, and we have it. Now let me add some padding there. A padding of 1.5 rem should be good. A border radius of 1 rem should be good as well. Now let me display this flex. Okay, so the flex is going to put the icon and then this text side by side. So let me save, and we have that. Now let me have some space between them, so a gap of 1.5 rem should be good. I'm going to set the height for this to be fit content. Okay, and that is because we are going to have some hover effects. Okay, just so we have some micro interaction or whatever it's called. Because of the hover, I'm going to have a transition here, and on hover I want to set the margin top of this to be negative 0.5 rem. Good. Now let's get the icon. Okay, so inside of the article, you're going to have the I tag and then change the font size to be 1.7 rem. Okay, so that is all right. Now let's get this content right here with the h1 sorry, the h4 and then the small tag, and that is inside a div. So we are going to get that div and then get the h4 inside of it. Now let's give that h4 a margin bottom of, let's do 1 rem. All right, so that is for, you know what, I'm going to increase this paragraph. So let me go back and I'm going to say lorem 15. Yeah, that should be good. All right, so that is all for the style. Okay, now this doesn't look good on mobile and on tablets. Okay, so let's have some media queries. I'm just going to go back here. We are going to do the tablets first, so I'm going to paste that, close the curly brackets. On tablets, I want to, let's get our services ID, let's get a container class as well, and I'm going to reduce the gap to 1 rem. Okay, now I'm going to get my article tag and set the padding to 1.2 rem. The gap here is going to be 0.8 rem as well. Now on hover, remember we had that shift on hover. We don't want it on tablets and then on mobile phones. So on hover, I want to set the margin to be 0. Okay, so you don't have that hover effect. Okay, so that is for tablets. Now let's have the media queries for small devices. Okay, so on small devices or on mobile phones, I want to first, let me get the services, let me get the container as well. In here, I want to change the grid templates columns to 1FR. Okay, so yeah, that should be good. And actually here, let me do same here. Okay, so the grid templates columns in here is going to be 1FR, 1FR. Okay, so on tablets it's going to be 2, on bigger screens it's going to be 3. I think that actually makes sense. That looks better, right? And on mobile phones it's going to be full width. Okay, now let me get the article tag and the div. Okay, the div inside of it, let me get the h4, and the margin bottom here is going to be 0. Let's do 0.8. Not bad. And that is all for this services section. Let's actually see how this will look on an actual device. Okay, so on tablets, this is how our services section is going to look. Okay, now let's see how this looks on mobile. And this is how it looks on mobile. Okay, great. Now let's close this and then move on to the next section. And the next section is going to be this specialists. Okay, the special or the top specialist section. So let's go back to our markup. Let's actually change the content. As I said, you know, these are the same contents, right? So let me change that real quick. I'm just going to do that and then we'll move on to the next section of the page. Okay, So I just changed the icon and then the h4, the contents of the h4 for each of the articles. Okay, so in here you see we have a different contents for the h4, and then we have a different contents for the h4, and the icons are different as well. Okay, so I just made that change. I just don't want to waste time doing that on screen, so that is it. Let me leave a comment here. Right, so let's see what we have. And we have this, okay, just like in the finished project. All right, now let's move on to the next section, which is going to be the top specialist section. Okay, so let's just see something from the finished project. Okay, so we have our h2, our paragraph, and then inside our container we are going to have these cards. Okay, so each of these is going to be inside an article tag, and as you can see we are going to have our socials. Okay, so we are going to have our socials, we are going to have the image itself, okay, which is going to be inside a div tag, and then we are going to have our info or details. Okay, so this is going to be specialist detail. Okay, and then finally we are going to have this WhatsApp icon or WhatsApp link right here. Okay, this is going to apply for each of these specialists. Okay, so let's hop back into the markup or the HTML with the idea of specialists, plural. Okay, let's have our h2 and our paragraph. Okay, so let's just do lorem 20. That should be good. Let's see. Yeah, we have this. Let's have our container class. Okay, and inside of it we are going to have our article. As I said, we are going to have our specialist image. Come on, we are going to have specialist info or specialist details. Let's just do details. We are going to have our socials. Okay, so specialist socials and a link for the WhatsApp. Okay, so let's actually give this a class. For now I'm just going to do a hashtag, but I'm going to give that a class of specialist WhatsApp, and that is all. Now inside this we are going to have the image. Okay, so let's go into our assets and get the first one. I'm just going to say specialist one. Okay, so that is our image. Now inside the details we are going to have an h4 for the name. Okay, so Dr. Kwejo Cancer, that is our h4. We are going to have, let's actually put this inside a small tag, and what the person specializes in. Okay, so this is surgery specialist. All right, so for the socials we are going to have our anchor tag, and this first one is going to go to linkedin.com / the person's handle, right? And let's grab the LinkedIn icon from here. Okay, so okay, that's going to be this. Let me copy that and then paste it in here. Okay, so that is the first one. Let's actually give it a target _ blank. Okay, so that this opens in a new tab. I'm going to duplicate this 3 times, and the second one is going to go to Twitter. The third is going to go to Facebook, and then the fourth is going to go to Instagram. Now let me change the icons for those. The second is going to be Twitter. Let me get the Twitter icon, copy, come back and replace that with this. Okay, let me get that of LinkedIn. No, the third one is what? Facebook. Okay, so let me get Facebook, copy, come back, and then I'm going to replace this. And then the fourth one is Instagram, so I'm going to get an Instagram icon, copy, and then paste. Okay, save. Let's see what we have. Okay, so we have the image, the details, and then the socials. Okay, we should have the WhatsApp icon as well. Let me copy and then paste it in here. Now the link is going to go to the WhatsApp API. So api.whatsapp.com/send. So we are going to make a request and then send a message to this number. Okay, so this would be your actual number so that people can directly, so that people can click this and then message you on WhatsApp. Okay, so that is it. So on click of this, it should take us to the WhatsApp. Now this is one specialist. Okay, so I'm just going to duplicate it 3 times so that we have all 4 of them, and then I'm going to style this. Okay, so let's get to the CSS. Let's actually create the partial for our specialist. Okay, and we are going to style this. Okay, and then I'll come back and then change the content to match what we have in the finished project. Okay, so right now this is what we have, just the first one that we duplicated. Okay, so let's start this and then I'll come back to change the content. So let's go into the specialists and let's get our specialist ID, and then I'm directly going to get the container class. Okay, and the width here is going to change. I'm going to make that 68%, and I'm going to display this grade. Okay, and the grade templates columns here is going to be repeat 4 times 1FR. Specialists, wasn't that the ID? Specialists, okay, great. All right, so we have this. Let me actually close the services. What else? Let me close these. Okay, I don't think we are going to refer to them, so let me just close them. Get the specialists. Now I want to give a gap between them, a gap of 2 rem. Okay, so we have that. All right, now let me get the article tag. Okay, each of these is inside an article tag, so I'm going to give them a background of white, the white variable color. Okay, and the border radius is going to be 1 rem. I'm going to give them a box shadow, 0 for the horizontal axis, 1.5 rem for the vertical axis, 1.5 for the blur, and an RGBA of the black color. Come on, black with some alpha. Okay, with some transparency basically. All right, so we have some box shadow there. Now I'm going to position this relative. Okay, just because we are going to position our socials absolute, so we have to position the parent of that, which is this article relative. And I'm going to have some hover effect, so I'm going to set a transition of all 400 milliseconds. Let's actually do 700 milliseconds. Now, as I said, I'm going to have a hover effect, so let me put that here. Now the box shadow is going to be none on hover. Okay, we have a very subtle hover effect there. Now I'm going to get the specialist image. Okay, and the height for this is going to be 20 rem. It's going to be positioned relative. The border radius is going to be 1 rem, and I'm going to set the overflow to be hidden. Okay, so we have that. Now let me get in I'm going to get the details. Okay, so specialist details, and I'm going to set the margin to be 1.5 rem for the top and bottom, and 0 for the left and right. Okay, so we have that. Let me actually text align everything to the center as well. Okay, so we have that as well. Now let me get the socials. So header socials, no, specialist. Okay, specialist socials. So the social media icons here, I'm going to position them absolute. Going to display flex. The flex direction is going to be column, and a gap of 1 rem should be good. Okay, so we have this. Now with the position of absolutes, I want them to be let's do 1.2 rem from the top, and then 1.2 rem from the right. Now let's go on to style each of these icons. Okay, and remember they are inside an anchor tag. Okay, so let's grab the anchor tags, and then the background is going to be white, the color is going to be primary. Let's give them a padding of 0.4 rem. Let's display them flex, just so they are positioned right in the center. And then the font size here, I'm going to make them, now the border radius is going to be 50% to make them a circle. That's good. Let's see, I'm going to have a hover effect, so I'm going to transition all 400 milliseconds is all right. Now for this header socials, I'm going to have an opacity of 0 for now. Okay, the visibility is going to be hidden as well, and then I'm going to set a transition. Okay, we are going to have a hover effect, so a transition of all 1 second, a delay of 400 milliseconds, and an ease. Now even before that, I'm going to have a hover effect for the icons. Okay, so let me bring that back up and then have the hover effect. So on hover, we want to set the background to be primary, and the color is going to be white. Okay, all right, so on hover we have this. Now I can go ahead and then hide them. Okay, we're going to have the hover effects we have in the finished project. So even before that, you know what, let me style this WhatsApp. Okay, let's go down here, and that is going to be outside of this. Okay, so below this we are going to have our styles for the WhatsApp. Okay, and we give that a class of specialist underscore WhatsApp. The background for this is going to be the green background, that is success. Let me show you that. So let's go into our config, and this color right here. Okay, that is the color success. All right, so that is going to be the background for our WhatsApp. Let's save. Specialist WhatsApp specialist. Okay, all right, so we have that color. Now the color itself, that's the text color, is going to be white. So white color. The position is going to be absolute. It's going to be 50% from the left, and so we have to transform and then translate on the x-axis -50%, and then it's going to be 30% from the bottom. Okay, it's going to be 30% from the bottom. Now let me give it a padding of 1 rem, a border radius of 50%. Let's save and see what we have. And we have this. Now it is stretched, so I'm just going to display that flex. And then here we are going to have some hover effects. Okay, so on hover of each of these articles, I'm actually going to bring in an overlay, and then I will show the socials and then this WhatsApp. Okay, so I'm going to have some effect here. So let me first set the opacity of this to be 0. Okay, the initial opacity is going to be 0. Visibility is going to be hidden, and transition of all 1 second, 400 for the delay. So the duration is 1 second, 400 for the animation or the transition delay, and then is for the timing function. Okay, so that is what we have now. All right, so let me go back up to the article. Okay, and I'm going to use, okay, so this overlay that we have here, okay, that animates from the left is the before pseudo elements of the specialist image. Okay, remember we had a class of specialist image that contains all the images that we have here, right? So we are going to use the before pseudo elements of that to animate, to have that overlay. Okay, so on hover of each of these cards, that is each of these articles, we are going to have the overlay animate in. Okay, so back in here, let me actually shrink this. I'm going to have my, so that is going to be here, and that is going to be the before pseudo element. Okay, so the content is going to be nothing. Let's display this block. The width is going to be 100% of its parent, and then the height is going to be 100% as well. Let's actually position this. Okay, so this is actually positioned relative already, so we can go ahead and then position this absolute. And from the top is going to be 0%, and then from the left is going to be 0 for now, just so we see it. Okay, let's give it a background. Okay, that's why we are not seeing it. All right, so we have it. Okay, we actually have it, but I want this to be an overlay. Okay, so let me remove this. Now the background is going to be a linear gradient. Okay, a linear gradient is going to be at a 135-degree angle, and we are going to have our primary color and then our primary variant color, but these are going to have some transparency. Okay, so we are going to use the RGBA here, and then first we are going to use the primary color, and then we are going to use the second color, which is going to have an alpha as well. Okay, we are using an RGBA, so we should have the alpha. So in here we are going to have the primary color variant with 0.8 alpha. Okay, so we have that. Great. Now to have the hover effect, this is going to be negative 100%. Okay, so it's going to be hidden outside, and then border radius is going to be 50%. Let's actually, it's going to be animated, or is going to have a transition. So let's give it a transition of all 1 second ease. And on hover, we want to animate this. Okay, we want to bring this in by giving it a left of 0. So on hover of the article tag, I want to get the specialist image and then the before, which we just start, right? I want to get that and then set the left to be 0. The border radius is going to be 1 rem. So let's hover over this and we have it. Okay. All right. Now on hover as well, on hover of the article tag, on hover of each of these cards, I want to show the socials and then the WhatsApp link as well, or the WhatsApp icon. So down here on hover of the article tag, I want to show the socials. Okay, so I want to get the socials and then show them. Okay, so the opacity here is going to be 1 and the visibility is going to be visible. Okay, so on hover we have it. All right, and this is for each of these. Okay, now let me get the let's show the WhatsApp as well. So specialist WhatsApp, and then just do the same thing here. Okay, let me actually just use a comma and then say specialist WhatsApp. Let me just remove this. Let me actually copy this and then put it on the rest of them. Blank, and the first one as well. Okay, let's save and let's try this. So we are going to chat, we are going to start a chat, and WhatsApp on our device is going to be launched. Okay, so if you have WhatsApp installed or anyone visiting your website, they can directly message you. Okay, and they can send you a message here on WhatsApp. All right, now I'm just going to close this. So now we are basically done with this specialist section. Okay, now let's make this responsive. So let's go back to our specialists and make this responsive. Okay, so I'm going to go to my general and copy this, and I'm going to paste that in here, close it, and let's make this responsive. So on tablets, this is going to be very simple. So let me just get the specialists. Come on. And on tablets, I'm just going to change the grid template columns for the container to be 1FR, 1FR. All right, and that is all for this. Let me just duplicate this for the small devices, and this is going to be 600 pixels, right? And here on small devices, this is going to be 1FR. Okay, All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and then change the markup. Okay, as you can see, we just have four of the same cards. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and then change the contents real quick. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and then do that real quick. So this is the first one, and we are not going to touch that, but the second one is going to have the second image. So it is going to be specialist 2. Let me change this to 2, and the name of this person is going to be fella. Okay, and this person is an aesthetic specialist. Next person is going to have the specialist 3 image. The name of this person is going to be Liza, and this person is going to be orthopedic specialist. And then the last person is going to be Abigail Brown, cardiology specialist, and the image is going to be the 4th image. Let's save, and we have them. Okay, right, now let's move on to the next section. Okay, let's actually see how this looks on a real device. Let's see how it's going to look on mobile phones. Let me increase this. Now let's move on to the next section, which is going to be our testimonials section. Okay, so let me close this. Let me actually leave a comment here. From the finished project, let's see. Each of these, first of all, we are going to have our H2 and then the paragraph. Okay, and each of these is going to be an article tag. Okay, each of these is going to be inside of an article tag, and we are going to have the review or the testimonial itself. We are going to have the picture of the patient and then the info of the patient. Okay, so let's come in here, and then this is going to be inside of a section tag, and we are going to give this an ID of testimonials. Okay, we are going to have our H2, the paragraph. Okay, so here let's just do lorem 12. Let me do lorem 15 instead. Now below this, I'm going to have the container, which is going to have the different testimonials. Okay, and each testimonial, as I said, is going to be an article, or is going to be inside of an article tag. Now the review itself, or the testimonial itself, is going to be a paragraph, and for now let's just do lorem 30. Okay, so this is going to be a typical testimonial, and below that we are going to have this right here. Okay, so which is going to contain the avatar and then the info. All right, so let's just make that a div with a class of patient, and inside of it we are going to have an avatar, which is going to be a div with a class of avatar, and we are going to have the image. Okay, so let's go into our assets and grab our first avatar. So that is our first avatar, and below that we are going to have our patient details or patient info, and that is just going to be an H4. Let's actually make this an H5. Okay, and that is going to have the name of the patient and a small tag, which is just going to say patient. So that is one patient. Okay, this is one patient, and we are going to have different patients. So I'm just going to duplicate this. Let me duplicate this about 5 times, and I'm going to change the content here real quick. So the second one is going to be avatar 2. That is the second image, and the name is going to be John Dumelo. He's a patient as well. And the next one is going to be avatar 3, and the name here is going to be Adam Quest. He's a patient as well. The next one is going to be avatar 4, and the name is going to be Chantel, right? And the fifth one, I think, let me actually make this 4. The fifth one here is going to be the avatar 5, the name, okay, and the last one, I think we have 6 in the finished projects. Not really sure, but let's check. I think it's 7. So the sixth one is, so this is the fifth one, right? This is going to be the sixth one. The name for this person is going to be Diana I, and the last one is going to be 7, number 7. And the name for this person is going to be, all right, so let me save this, and that is all for the markup. Okay, so let's check, and we have all the images, and then the names. We have the images, the names, and then the review, okay, or the testimonial. So that's all for the markup. Let's hop into the CSS. Let's actually create a partial for that. So one that's called testimonials.scss. Okay, let's make sure we are importing that here. So let's get the testimonials partial. Let's save that. Let me actually close this general. I'm losing my voice. All right, so here in the testimonial section, let me actually put this side by side so that we know what's going on. All right, so let's style this. Now here I'm going to get the testimonials, and inside of that, let me actually change the width here to be the container LG. Okay, all right, so let's continue and then grab the container inside of it. So let's get the article tag. Okay, now inside here I'm going to make each article have the gradient background. Okay, so I'm going to include the gradient background. All right, so we have the gradient background. Now I'm going to set the padding to 1.5 rem for the top and bottom, and then 2 rem for the left and right. Border radius is going to be 1 rem. The cursor is going to be default. The font size here is going to be 0.9 rem. Save, and we don't have much difference here because of the big image that we have. So let's just resize the image. Remember, we gave the image div a class of avatar. Okay, so that is what we are going to style. Let's give that a width of 2.5 rem, and the aspect ratio, we are going to make that 1:1. So this is going to make sure the height is always the same as the width. Okay, that is the aspect ratio 1:1 that we have there. And the border radius is going to be 50% to make it a circle, and we are going to set overflow to be hidden. Okay, so we have this. All right, now let's get this. Okay, remember we gave the avatar, and then this info right here is inside a div with a class of patient. Okay, so let's get that. I'm kind of losing my voice. Okay, and this should actually be inside of that class. Okay, so let's get the patient class and put the avatar inside of it. Now the patient class is going to be displayed flex, and let's align items to the center. Okay, now let's give a gap of 1 rem. Let's save, and we have this. All right, and I'm going to get the paragraph. Okay, let me come up here and then get the paragraph, which is the actual review that we have here. I'm just going to give a margin bottom of 1.5 rem. All right, so this is what we have. We are going to use SwiperJS, so we don't need to worry about the styles. Okay, that's actually okay for now. Now down here, I'm going to have the, let's see, I'm going to go into my generals and then grab the media queries. I'm going to have the media queries here. Okay, before we implement SwiperJS. So let me go back and copy, paste. Let's have some styles for the media queries. So here, this media query is actually going to be for the small screens. Okay, come on. So here, what I want to do is to get, let me actually shrink this. Let's get the testimonials and get a container inside of it and the article. Okay, and here I'm going to just set the padding to 1.5 rem. Okay, all right, no big difference there. Now let's just go ahead and then implement SwiperJS, okay, to make this a slide just like we have here. All right, so let's go to swiperjs.com and I'm going to click on demos. Okay, let's see the demos that they have. And in here you can see there are different slides. Okay, there are different types of slides that you can use, but we are going to use the slides per view. Okay, this is what we are going to use. So I'm going to click core to see the code or the source code for this, and here let me just copy the link. Okay, the CSS link, I'm just going to copy and then paste that inside my markup. So let me go to the head, and below this I'm going to paste that. All right, let's make sure we bring in the CDN for the JavaScript as well. So I'm going to copy that, come to the bottom, and I'm going to paste that above the main JS. Okay, I'm going to paste that above it, so we have the CDNs in our code. Now let's check something. Looking at the markup for this, you can see the parent, that is the main parent. Okay, holding the slides should have a class of swiper and then my swiper. Okay, so right here I'm going to copy these two classes. I'm going to copy, come into our code, and our section, that is the testimonial section, should have those classes. Okay, those two classes. So here I'm going to use the swiper class instead. Okay, down here I'm going to use the swiper class as well here. Now let's go back to what they have here and the direct child. So in our case, the container class should be swiper wrapper. Okay, so right here we can add that class to this. Okay, but I'm going to replace it with the container class. So let me save this, come into the CSS, and I'm going to replace the container class with the swiper wrapper class that we just copied. Okay, so we have that, and as you can see, all the slides, all the individual slides should have a class of swiper slide. Okay, so I'm going to copy that, and all our articles in this case is going to have that class. So in here I'm going to add a class of to all of the articles. Okay, so let me copy this and make sure um it should be here. I'm going to give that class to all the articles. All right, now let me save. And the last thing we have to do here is to copy this code. Okay, I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste that inside of my main JS. Okay, we have our main JS already imported or linked, so I'm going to go into that, and then down here I'm going to paste the code I just copied. Let me leave a comment here. So let's see what we have. Okay, let's see what we have so far. And we have our testimonial section done. Okay, we have our slides. Now this doesn't look exactly like the finished project because the actual review is too much. So I don't know if I should just reduce that, or I should just forget about it. But let me make some adjustments. So I'm just going to grab all of them. 1 2 3 4 5 6, and I'm going to do lorem 18 instead. Okay, let's save, and this is what we have now. All right, now let's see if this is actually responsive, and it is not responsive. Okay, so what we have to do, if you go back to the SwiperJS homepage and then you click on API, you can down here breakpoints. Okay, so they have breakpoints. You can actually copy this and then set your own breakpoints. Okay, but I'm not going to waste time on that, so let's just type them in. So here I'm going to leave a comment. So the breakpoint, first we are going to have SwiperJS uses mobile first responsiveness. Okay, so on mobile we are going to have 1. Okay, so let me save, and this is how it is going to look on mobile. Okay, which looks good, right? But on tablets, okay, on tablets, let me leave a comment here. So on tablets, I want to set the slice per view to 2. Okay, so let me save that, and I'm going to have another one for large screens. Okay, so that is going to be 1024 pixels and above, and they are going to be 3. Okay, this should be inside of here. I should have a comma here. Okay, so this is how it's going to look on tablets, and on large devices it's going to be 3. Okay, so that's how this is what we have now. All right, now let me go back to our CSS and let me actually change the articles. Okay, I'm going to make that a swiper slide. I'm going to make that the swiper slide class. Let's see. Oh, swiper slide. Now looking at the demo, okay, looking at the demo here, they have a pagination. Okay, so let's just copy this. This is the pagination that they have in the demo, and we have that in the finished project as well. So let's copy that pagination, come back to our markup, and that is going to be outside of the container. Okay, so let me paste that. In here, we are going to have the styles for it. Okay, so let's get the swiper pagination bullets, and the background for this is going to be our primary color. Let's save that, and let's see what we have. Okay, so we have our pagination. Let's actually bring this down. Okay, the pagination, let's bring that down. So we are going to go up to the top here, and we are going to give this a margin bottom of 4 rem. Let's see what we have. Okay, so we now have our pagination at the bottom here. All right, let me actually leave a comment here. Okay, so we have our swiper pagination working perfectly. Okay, great. Now let's move on to the next section, okay, which is going to be the appointment section. So let me actually close this. Let me have a comment here. This is going to be the end of the testimonials. So looking at the finished project, we have the left side where is going to have this info, and we have this right side, okay, with the form. Okay, so let's tackle this right side first, and then we'll come to this section. Okay, yeah, let's just do that. All right, so let's come to the markup, and then this section is going to have an ID of appointment. Let's have our container class, and inside of it we are going to have our info. Okay, that is the left side. Let's call this info, and we are going to have our form, which is going to be the right side. Okay, so we are going to tackle the info section or the info side first. So let me get into that. Now here we are going to have our h2, okay, where it's going to say get an appointment. Okay, below that we are going to have a paragraph. Let's just do lorem 14 of, yeah, something like that. Let's save that. And below this we are going to have the different, as you can see here in the info section, we have 1, 2, 3 different items here. Okay, so for each of them you are going to have this icon. We are going to have this, I think, h4, and then a small tag, okay, with this text inside of it. Okay, so let's have our article tag, and we are going to have a div with a class of info icon. Okay, inside of it we are going to have our icon. Let's just get that from, let's go back to box icons. Let's actually close all these SwiperJS things. Okay, now I'm going to get user. Which one did I use? I think I used this. Let me just get that. Copy. I'm going to paste that in. All right, and we should have our user. Okay, so we have the first one. Now a sibling of this info icon is going to be just a div. Okay, and inside of it we are going to have our h4 and a small tag. All right, now there's one article, so I'm just going to copy, duplicate that twice. The second one is going to be, let's see, from the finished project to advanced technology. I just said tech advanced. Where did I get that icon? You know what, we're just going to use anything for now. Okay, let's just use anything that makes sense. You are probably going to get a meaningful icon, but for now let's just use this. Okay, or this, I don't know. So let's just grab that, and we are going to use that for the second one. Okay, so let's just paste it, and it is going to say technology. Okay, the third one is going to be emergency care. Emergency care, nothing here is for emergency. Let's search aid. Let me just grab this, copy, and then paste it. Emergency. Okay, all right, so that is for the info part. Okay, that is for the info, and let's actually go into the css. So we are going to create a css for this, a partial appointment.css, and let's make sure we import that in here. Okay, so let me duplicate this, and let's get the appointment.css. all right, now we are going to style the info. We're going to start the info, and then we will come to have the markup for the form. Okay, so let's start the info. Let's put this side by side. So we have this, that is the info. Now let's get the container, and here we are going to display grade. Okay, and the grade template columns here is going to be 47% and then 47%. Okay, so 47 for this info section or this info part, and then 47 for the form. Okay, the form part. Now the remainder of this is going to be 6%. So let's make that the gap. Okay, so the gap here is going to be 6%. all right, now in here we are going to get the info. Let me get the paragraph inside of it, which is this paragraph here. Okay, I'm going to get that, and I'm going to set the margin to be 0.5 for the top, 0 for the left and right, and then 2 rem for the bottom. Under that we are going to have our article, and this is going to be displayed flex. Okay, so let me save, and we are going to have the icon and then this content side by side. Now let me have a gap between that, so a gap of 1.5 frames should be good, and I'm going to give that a margin bottom of 1.5 frame as well. Let's save, and this is what we have. Now let me get the small tag. Okay, these texts are inside of a small tag, so let me get that. So inside this article I'm going to get the small, and the margin top is going to be 0.4 rem. Let's actually display block so that this actually works. Okay, let's save, and we have this. I don't think the second item has an icon. Let's see. Let me check. No, let me just use this icon. Okay, at this point I don't have to waste a lot of time on this. And let's see, we have it. All right, now let's style the icons. Okay, so inside the article, I'm going to get the info icon. Remember, we gave that a class of info icon. Okay, each of the icons is inside a div with a class of info icon. So that's what we are going to style. Let's give them a background of secondary color, text color, or the icon itself is going to be the white color. Let's give them a padding of 0.8 rem. The height is going to be fit content, and the border radius is going to be 50% to make them a circle. Okay, so it is stretched. Let me remove this height and let's see. It is still stretched, so I'm going to display flex. Let's see what we have. Yep, it is still stretched. Okay, so now let me actually give that a height of fit content again. All right, and we have it. Perfect. From there, I'm going to change the font size. I'm going to increase that to 1.2 rem. Okay, I think that's enough. Yeah, so that's enough for this side. Okay, now let's go back to the markup and let's have the markup for the actual form. Okay, for the form section or for the form part. Let me actually remove this action for now. We are going to use FormSpree for the form submission. Okay, where is going to be after we style this form. In here, let's have a div with a class of form group, and we are going to have our label. Okay, and this first one is going to be for name, and it is going to say name. Okay, below this we are going to have our input, and this is going to be a text input. Let's actually give this a placeholder of enter your name, and let's give this a name as well. And we are going to know why I'm giving this a name. Okay, we are going to know why I'm giving this a name once we actually start implementing the submission. So let me give this a name of patients. Come on, name. Let me give this an ID as well. The ID for this should correspond to the 4. Okay, for the label. Okay, so this label is for this input basically. Let me give that the name, which is this, right? And let's make this required. Okay, so that people don't submit an empty field. All right, so that is our first field. Below that, we are going to have another form group, a div with a class of form group, a label, and this is going to be for phone. Okay, the phone number. It's just going to say phone number. Below that, we are going to have our inputs, and this is going to be a type of number, or you can make it text. The placeholder here is going to be enter your phone, or let's say enter your number. Enter phone number makes sense. Okay, the name here should correspond to this, so the name here is going to be phone, the required keyword. Okay, all right. Oh, this name here should be phone number. Okay, the ID should rather correspond to this, not the name. So the ID is going to be phone. All right, so we have the second field. The third one is going to be the third one is going to be for the date. So we have date, we are going to have the input. The type is going to be date. The placeholder for this is going to be choose a date, and the name is going to be date. Let's give this an ID as well of date, and then now below that we are going to have another form group, and there with a class of form group. Let's have the label, okay, which is going to say department. It's going to say select department, and this is going to be a select. The name here, I'm going to make that department. The ID should correspond to the 4 of the label. Let's give it that required keyword, and that's it. Okay, that's it. Now inside the select, you are going to have the options. The first option here is going to have a value of department 1. I'm going to duplicate this 4 times or 3 times. We're going to have department 2. We're going to have 3 and then 4. Okay, that is for our department. Okay, so this is going to be similar for the next form group, which is going to be the doctor. Okay, so here you're going to just make the changes. The name here is going to be doctor. This should correspond to the 4. Let's just change all the departments to doctor, and that should be okay. Okay, so doctor 1 2 3 4 5. Let me make this 5. All right, so that's it. Okay, and lastly we should have another form group even before our button. Okay, so another div with a class of form group. Let's have the label. That's going to say message, additional message, added message, whatever. And this is going to be a text area. Okay, the name for this is going to be added message. The ID should correspond to the 4 of the label, so that's just going to say message. The columns I'm just going to remove that, and the rows I'm just going to make that 6 should be good. Okay, and let's give that a placeholder of add a message, and this should be required as well. Now below this I'm going to have the button. Okay, the submit button, and this is going to be an input with a type of submit request, and let's actually give this the btn primary class. Okay, remember we had a btn primary class in our general partial file, right? So that is what we are doing here, and that is all for this form. Okay, that's all for this form. Now let's go straight ahead and then style this. So let's go back into our appointment, and inside the container we are going to have our form styles. Even before we style this, let's just see what we have. Okay, so we have this right here, and I'm going to put this side by side just so we see what's happening. Right, so let's grab the form tag. Okay, that's the only form we have, and we are going to display that to be flex. The flex direction is going to be column, and let's give a gap of 1.4 rem between them, between the form groups. Okay, so that's all we have. Now let's grab each of the form groups, and the label inside of it is going to have a font size of 0.85 rem, the margin bottom of 0.4 rem is going to be displayed inline block, and font weight here is going to be let's do 600. Okay, so that's for each of the labels. Right, now let's get the input, the text area, and then the select. Okay, let's get them all, and then the background for them is going to be the white color. The pattern here is going to be 0.85 rem for the top and bottom, and then 1 rem for the left and right. It's going to be displayed block, so let's save. Let's give it a width of 100%. Okay, right. Now border radius here is going to be 0.4 rem, and raise size. Okay, come on, raise size for the text area. Raise size here. Notice we can resize the text area. We don't want that, so we are going to set resize to be none. Okay, and appearance is going to be none. Okay, so that we don't have this drop down. Now we are basically done with the desktop version of the appointment. Okay, we are basically done with that. So let's just have the media queries. Okay, so let's quickly have the media queries. Let's go into the general, and I'm going to grab this. That's for the medium. Paste that down here. So let me get the appointment and the container. Okay, the gap here is going to be, first of all, let me see how this actually looks on tablets. Okay, so this doesn't really look bad on tablets. I don't know if I should just leave this. The text on the side is too much. I'm just going to remove some of it. Okay, it is too much. The first one, let me just let me remove some of this. Yeah, okay, so this actually doesn't look bad. So let's get back here, and then let me just leave this. Okay, let me make this small, and let's give some style on small devices. Okay, I want to change the grid template columns to 1FR on small devices, and the gap here is going to be 2 rem. Save, and let's see what we have on small devices. Okay, so this is what we have. Nice. Now let me correct this. So let me actually put this side by side so that we see what we're doing. And that is for the info, right? And I'm going to get, let me get the H2 and then the P, right? And I'm going to text align them to the center. Okay, so we have that. Okay, so this is done. Okay, this section is done. Now the next thing you want to do is to actually send this form. Okay, anyone visiting your website should be able to send this form, and you should be able to receive the request or the form in your email. Okay, so that's what we are going to do next, and for that we are going to use FormSpree. Okay, so let's go to formspree.io. Now if you don't have an account, you are going to click get started and then sign up with the email you want to be receiving this form in. Okay, so you are going to click get started and then sign up, but I have an account, so I'm going to sign in, and I'm going to create a new form. And this is the email I want to be receiving the form in, okay, the request in. So I'm going to name this form. Okay, so that's the name of the form. And I'm going to create it. Okay, so let's create the form. And right here, all we have to do here is to copy this link right here. So I'm just going to click copy. Come back to my project. Let's go to the markup. And in the form, this link that we just copied, the link that we just copied is going to be the action. Okay, so we are going to put that in the action of the form. Okay, so one thing also, you should make sure the method for the form is post. Okay, so let's copy this and then paste that here in the form as well. Okay, so this is the only thing you have to do after signing up. Okay, this is the only thing you have to do. So now let's go to our website and let's try this out. I'm going to enter a name here, a phone number. Let me select a date, department, and then doctor. Okay, and let's submit this. Okay, so our form has been submitted. Now I'm going to go into my email. And right here is the form. Okay, right here is the form that we just entered. Okay, so the name, the phone number, the date we selected, the department, the doctor, and then the added message. Okay, the additional message we entered. Okay, so we have our form. Now notice this patient's name, this phone number, this date text that we have here. Okay, this grade text that we have here, that is coming from the names for the different fields or for the different inputs. Okay, so right here, notice we have the name for this to be patient's name, and that is what we have here. Okay, so we're just specifying the field in which this message is coming from. Okay, so that is very important. You should make sure you give a name for each of the fields in your form. Okay, so that is very, very important. Now, one thing I want to add here, let's go back to the FormSpree and let's go to the settings. Let's come down, and down here we can add a reCAPTCHA, okay, to prevent spam. So we can add this, or we can check this to prevent spam. Now let's go back to the website, and I'm going to refresh this, and let's try submitting something again. So remember, we gave our fields the required keyword or the required attributes. Okay, as you can see here, all the fields have the required attributes, and because of that, we cannot submit empty fields. Okay, as you can see here, we have to fill the form before we can submit. So let me enter something else, the name, the phone number. Let's select a date. Let me just do 5 and let's submit this. And this time you have to pass this reCAPTCHA. Okay, all right, so our form has been submitted. Now let's check our email again, and then we have it. Okay, we have a new form, as you can see here. So let's check that, and we have the name, Jane Doe, we have the phone number, the date, the department, and then the doctor as well. Okay, so that is how you use FormSpree. All right, now the last section remaining is the, let me refresh this. The last section is the footer. Okay, so let's get back to the markup and let's finish up our project with the footer. So let me actually copy this comment, and I'm going to paste that in here. This is going to be the end of the appointment. Let me save that, and let's have our footer. Now looking at the finished project, you can see we have 4 different items in it. Okay, so we have, these are going to be inside of an article. Each of these is going to be an article tag. So we have the first one here. We have the logo, some paragraph, and then some contact details. We have our support, we have our menu, which is the permalinks, and we have our contact us. Okay, this part right here. And then finally we are going to have this copyright at the bottom. Okay, so let's go back, and I'm actually not going to type this out. Okay, I don't want to waste time on the footer. So we are going to have our footer. Our footer is going to be inside this footer semantic tag. Inside it, we are going to have our container class, and we are going to have our first article. Okay, we are first going to have our logo, and notice we are giving this a class of footer logo. We have this paragraph, and then we have some contact details. Okay, right here we have our phone number and then our email. Down here we have our support, and we have these links which are going nowhere, and we have this article as well. Okay, with the menu or the permalinks. Okay, and lastly we have this contact as article. Okay, and notice these socials are inside a div with a class of footer socials, as you can see here. And lastly we are going to have our copyright. Okay, so that is going to be a sibling of the container class. Okay, so this is the end of the container class, and we are going to have our copyright right here. Okay, a div with a class of copyright. And that is all for our footer. Now one thing I want to change here is I'm going to call this permalinks. Okay, and let's save, and we should have our footer markup. So let's go to our project, and we have it. Okay, we have our footer markup. Now let's go into our SCSS or our SASS and then style this. Okay, so let's create a partial for that, footer.scss, and let's make sure we are bringing that in the main SCSS file. Okay, let's save. Let me close this appointment, and let's go into the footer. Now I'm going to put this side by side so that we see what's happening. Now let's get a footer tag, and we are going to give that a background of the black color. Okay, the color itself, the text color is going to be the light color, and let's give it a padding top of 6 rem. Okay, so we are getting somewhere, and we are going to get the container class inside of it, and we are going to display that to be grade. The grade template columns is going to be repeat 4 times 1 fr. Now the gap is going to be 5 rem, and the font size here is going to be 0.85. All right, now inside this container I'm going to get all the links, and the color for them is going to be the light color, but they are going to have a hover effect, so I'm going to set a transition for them. A transition of all 400 milliseconds is. And now let's have the hover effect. So on hover I want to just change the color to be the white color. Now in the container we are going to have our article. Let's target the article in the container and then display that to be flex. The flex direction this time is going to be column. Let me give a gap of 1 rem. Okay, all right, so we have some space there, and right here I'm going to get this div. Okay, so these are inside a div. Let me show you. As you can see here, okay, so these are inside a div. Okay, so let's get those. So inside the article we are going to get the direct divs and display them to be flex. I'm going to align items to the center, and the gap is going to be 0.6 rem. Let's save, and we have this. All right, now I'm going to get the, let's see, I'm going to get these H3s. Okay, these are H3s. Looking back at the markup, they are H3s. Okay, each one of these titles are H3s inside of the article tag. So I'm going to get those. So the H3s are just going to have a white color. I save that and we have it. Okay, they are all white now. Now inside this, let's see, as you can see, our logo is not white. I want the logo to be white as well. So inside this anchor tag, come on, inside this anchor tag, I'm going to get the logo or the H3 inside of it, and then the color is going to be white. Okay, the white color. Let's save, and we have our logo white now. All right, now let's come down here and then style the socials that we have here. Okay, I want them to be a little bigger. Footer socials, and I'm going to display them to be flex. I think they are already displayed flex. Okay, because they are inside the div, and right here we've displayed flex for the divs. Okay, so I'm just going to give them a gap of 1 rem should be good. Okay, so they have that gap, and let me actually increase the font size as well. A font size of 2, that's too much. 1 point, that's also too much. 1.1 should be good. Now the copyright, okay, the copyright that we have here, that's going to be a sibling of the container. So right here we are going to have, let's get our copyright, and I'm going to text align that to the center. Let's give it a padding of 1.5 rem for the top and bottom, and then 0 for the left and right. The margin top here is going to be 4 rem. Let's save and see what we have so far, and we have this. Okay, I'm going to give it a border top of 1 pixel solid, and I'm going to do RGBA of white, of the white color with an alpha of 0.2. Okay, so we have that border, and I'm actually going to reduce the font size. Okay, so the font size here is going to be, so 0.9 okay, 0.9 is all right. Okay, so we are actually done with our footer. Okay, we are done with our footer. Now let's make sure this actually looks good on tablets and then mobile phones. So let's go to our general, and I'm going to copy this, come back to the footer, and then paste it. Okay, now let's get the footer again, and we are going to get a container, and the gap this time is going to be 2.5 rem. Okay, that is going to be on tablets. Yep, that's all right, and that's all we are going to do on medium devices. Now let's go on small devices. Okay, media query for small devices, so this should be 600 pixels, and here the grid template columns is going to be 1FR. So let me shrink this. Okay, so we have that 1FR. Now I'm going to text align everything to the center. Okay, and let's get the button, the socials, and then these two divs that we have here. Okay, so BTN primary, the footer, socials, let's get those, and then we're going to set the margin to 0 or 2. Okay, so those are in place. That is the button and then the footer socials. Now we are going to get the article tag and the div inside of it. Okay, so the direct div, we're going to justify content to the center. and that's going to apply to this. All right, so that looks good on mobile, and that is all for our footer section. Okay, let's actually see how this footer section is going to be, or how our footer is going to look on mobile. And there's it. Okay, so this actually looks good. Okay, so we are basically done with our whole website. Now I want to make some changes. First of all, on click of this, on click of any of these, okay, I want to close it. Okay, so let's say when we want to come to the make appointment section, on click of this, I want to close this nav menu. All right, so let's go to our main.js, and we are going to add an event listener on. So down here, let me leave a comment. So here we are going to add an event listener on all the icons that we have in the nav menu. Okay, and that is going to be on only medium devices and then small devices. Okay, so right here we are going to say if the window inner width is less than 1024 pixels, and that is where our breakpoints for our medium devices start. Okay, that is our breakpoints for the medium devices. So anything below that, so here document the query selector all, and we are going to get the nav items li, and then get all the links inside of it. Okay, and then we are going to use a for each loop. Let's call each of them nav item. So let's get each of them, that is the links, and here we are going to add an event listener on them. Okay, and there is going to be a click event. So on click of them, we want to just call the close nav function that we have up here. Okay, so let's try. Oh, actually this should be close. Okay, so let's try this. Okay, so let's go to our projects, and now one thing, I don't want this to look like this on tablets. Okay, the appointment section, I want it to look different on tablets. I think we made a mistake. Okay, they should only look like this on mobile phones, but on tablets I want it to look just like on desktop. Okay, just like this. So we are going to go back to our appointment. Let's get that, and this should be 600 pesos. I made a mistake, I didn't change that. So this style is only going to apply on mobile. Now let's check. Let's go to the appointment, and we have it. Okay, it's only going to look like this on mobile. Nice. Now one more thing I want to do is to change the styles, that's the background, and then the font colors for the nav on scroll. Okay, so by default it's going to look like this, but on scroll we are going to change it. Okay, we are going to make it look like how we change it in the finished project. Okay, we are going to have the background to be white, and then the links are going to be black. So let's go back to our main JS, and down here, actually let me do that here. Okay, All right, and we are going to add an event listener on the window object. Okay, and this is going to be a scroll event, and on scroll we are going to run this function right here. Okay, so let's get the nav. Let's do document.query selector, and then get the nav tag, and we are going to toggle a class list here. Okay, which we haven't created yet. Let's call this class window scroll. Okay, so when we scroll more than 0 pixels, we want this class to take effect on the nav. Okay, now let's go back to our nav partial. Okay, let's go back in here, and right here we are going to have the styles for the window scroll class that we have in the main.js. Okay, this class. So let me actually copy this, and inside the nav, let me actually leave a comment here, and that class is going to be on the navbar. Okay, on scroll we want the background to be white. Okay, so let's have the white color for the background. Let me actually show you. So let's go back to our project, and on scroll, let me refresh this. What is wrong? Oh, we have this in the we have this in the media query. Okay, let's take that and then bring that up here. Okay, that shouldn't be in the media query. That should be inside this main nav. All right, so on scroll we should have the background change to the white color. All right, now notice the links are also white. Okay, so we can see that it's white on a white background. So let's get the container and get the button. Okay, I'm going to get the button and change the color for that. The color here is going to be the black color. Let's change the color for the links as well. They're going to have the black color as well. So let's save this, and on scroll we have it. Okay, now the logo isn't changing, so we have to get that and then change it. Save that. Okay, so we have it. Now one last thing is to change this. Okay, I don't want this to change. That is the text for this button. I don't want that to change. So a class of btn, right? So for that we are going to, the color is going to remain white. Let's save, and we have it. Okay, so this is exactly like we have in the finished project. Okay, so that is also done, and I think we are completely done with the whole project. Okay, now one last mistake I made is, let's actually go into the header, and right here, okay, right here I'm going to remove this style. I don't think we need that. Now let's see what we've created. Okay, so everything is working perfectly. We have our socials, which open in a new tab. We have our WhatsApp as well, and it is going to launch WhatsApp on our device. Okay, let me close this. We have our testimonial section. We have our form, which we've tested and it is working perfectly, and we have our footer section. Okay, so everything is looking great on desktop. Now let's see on mobile. Okay, our background changes color on scroll. We have our services section, our specialists section. Now I want to correct this. Okay, so let's go back to our nav, and in our media query, that is here on medium devices, I want to make some changes there. Okay, so let's in here I'm going to get the container, and every link inside of it is going to be white, okay, instead of the black. That is the color. Let's save that and then let's check it out. Let me refresh this. Okay, so we have a white color. So now I think we are completely done with the whole website. Okay, we are done with the whole website. So now let's go ahead and then make our website live on the internet. Okay, let's go ahead and then deploy our website. So the files that we are going to need is our main.js file. We are going to need our index HTML and our style, our minified or our compiled CSS. Okay, those are the three files that we are going to need, and we are going to need our assets as well. So I'm actually going to create a folder here. Let me call this production, and I'm going to copy the files that we are going to need. Okay, and the assets as well, and I'm going to put that, let me copy them. Okay, I'm going to copy and then paste it inside this production folder, and this folder is going to be compressed. So let's compress that, and this is what we are going to upload to our server. Okay, so let's go back to our H panel. That is the Hostinger H panel. Okay, let's go to shared hosting, and let's go to file manager. Okay, let's click on file manager, and let's select our domain name. Okay, so this is the domain name we registered, and you should have a public underscore HTML folder here. Okay, if you don't have it, you can just create one right here. Okay, and inside of it is where our files are going to live. Okay, so right here I have some files already. I'm just going to delete them. If you have files there, you can also delete them as well. Let me refresh this. Okay, and we are going to upload our zip file. Okay, so let's locate our project and then get the file. That is the zip file, and we are going to upload that. Okay, so I'm going to click upload, and we have our zip file. Okay, so right here I'm going to extract this file, so I'm going to click extract. I just did dot. Okay, and our file has been extracted, so I don't need the zip file anymore. I'm just going to delete that. I'm going to go into the extracted folder, copy all these, and then move it into the HTML or the public HTML. Okay, so I'm going to move these files into the public HTML. So let me select that and then move them in. Okay, so let's go into our public HTML, and I can now delete this production folder. Okay, nothing is inside of it, so I'm just going to delete that. Now our folder structure here should look like our production zip that we have here. Okay, should look like this. We should have two files and then these two folders. Okay, should look like that. As you can see here, that's exactly what we have. Okay, so now our website is live, so let's actually visit the website. Okay, so our website is live, so everything is working perfectly. Let me actually test this out again. Let's submit this. All right, now let's check our email. So no, let me go to this browser. Our email is even open, so I'm just going to refresh this, and we should have another message. Okay, so this is the name we entered, this is the phone number, the date, the department, the doctor, and then the message. Okay, so everything is working perfectly on the live website. Okay, let's go back to the website, and all is done. Okay, all right, so that is all for this tutorial. I hope you learned something from this. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.